All right. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Alliance of Angels webinar. It is a pleasant afternoon today in Seattle, and we are privileged to have Shirish to come share with us his insights into the art and science of achieving product market fit. Right. And before we go into the session, just a few logistics matters. This is a Zoom meeting. If you have any questions that you want to ask Shirish about along the way, feel free to jump in. You can just speak out. This is a standard webinar, so don't be shy, right? And if you are rather not to do that and you want to use the chat window, that is okay too. I think Shirish mentioned that you'll be checking the chat window if you have any questions too. Right, so we find that having folks jump in makes this a more fun session, more interactive, and great learning experience for everyone. But that said, also, right, if you are not speaking, we do ask that you please put yourself on mute, right? So no background noises and that kind of stuff that doesn't interrupt our session today, right? And I'm going to say a few words about Alliance of Angels before we start. My name is Jane. I run this organization, Alliance of Angels. It's an angel investing group here in Seattle. We have 140 angel investors in the organization. Right, every year we put about 10 million into 20 companies, give or take. Right, most companies that are fundraising from us, they're looking for a total somewhere between $500,000 to 1.5. It's the total round size. Right, my typical check size is 250 to 500. Right, so we are a sector agnostic investor. About maybe a half of our investments are in IT, a quarter in consumer, the rest is in life sciences, hardware, energy, etc. We're also relatively stage agnostic. It doesn't matter how early your company is. We're happy to hear from you and learn more about what you are building. So if you're an entrepreneur on this call and you're fundraising, you want to get some feedback on your company, feel free to ping me. My email is at the bottom of this slide, right? And we also sometimes have angel investors join us as well. If you are interested in learning more about my organization from the investor side, feel free to send me a note too, and I'm happy to share more information with you. All right, and with that, I'm going to stop talking, right? And I'm going to hand the session over to our presenter today, Shirish, who's going to share a little bit more about himself and get us started.
All right, thank you, Eugene, for the opportunity to talk today to this group. I will introduce myself shortly in one of the next slides. But as Eugene mentioned, today's talk is about how to achieve product market fit, which is, I've been a serial entrepreneur in the past, and I've had various experiences in terms of achieving product market fit. My first company, my initial offering did not achieve product market fit and I had to pivot. My second company was a home run with respect to achieving product market fit. So we all have different experiences, but it is the most important thing that you can achieve for your company as you get started. And there is a lot of art and science behind it that I'd like to share today. So with that, if you can go to the next slide. All right, so let me talk a little bit about my background. I've been in the Seattle area for the last 35 years, hard to believe. But I joined Microsoft in 1987 in the days of MS-DOS, well before Windows became a reality for Microsoft. And it was a phenomenal time to spend at Microsoft as it was the center of the software universe. And my experience primarily was in email, launching Microsoft Mail and then Exchange. And then I did the Hotmail acquisition for Microsoft. And then I left Microsoft in 1999 and I started my entrepreneurial journey. My first company, as I discussed, pivoted finally into mobile email. This was in the early days of BlackBerry, and we were eventually acquired by BlackBerry, or RIM as it was called at that time, in 2002. And the technology we developed became the consumer email brand for BlackBerry called BlackBerry Internet Email. Eventually serviced about 50 million BlackBerry users. And I was with BlackBerry for a number of years, helping them launch a number of their devices and penetrate the consumer market. And then I left BlackBerry in 2006 and started LimeMocha in 2007. LimeMocha was a pioneer in the field of social language learning. We allowed our users to learn over 30 different languages. And what was unique was not only that we provided instruction for you to learn a language, but we also created a social network of language learners where every native speaker could help somebody else learn their native language. And the company grew to over 15 million members around the world and eventually was acquired by Rosetta Stone. Next slide, please. I'm currently an author and also heavily involved with helping entrepreneurs. My book, From Startup to Exit, was published last year. It's an award-winning book and really is designed for entrepreneurs who would like to understand the totality of the journey, all the way from ideation to achieving product market fit, to fundraising, and then eventually finding an exit. And so you'll find a lot more about this topic in my book, which you can find on Amazon or any other bookstore. Next slide, please. So the notion of product market fit was really popularized by Mark Andreessen. I'm sure you all heard of Mark Andreessen. And according to Mark, product market fit means being in a good market with a product that can satisfy the market. But essentially that you have identified a significant need or a pain point, and that you have a product that really does a great job of addressing that need and is attracting customers by the boatload. Next slide, please. The path to product market fit can be a long and arduous path. We're all familiar with Netflix, and hard to believe that Netflix would have a challenge achieving product market fit. But in reality, it took Netflix 18 months to find product market fit and a repeatable, scalable business model that worked. Originally, the model was to package coupons into DVD players that would allow people to rent a certain number of DVDs. And then after that, they could rent individual DVDs. But what they found out was that while people rented the free DVDs, nobody really came back and rented additional DVDs. And it took them about 18 months to finally come up with the value proposition of no due dates, no late fees, and a subscription model that ultimately ended up working. And in fact, that's really when I personally also started using Netflix as opposed to my Hollywood video store down the street because it was so convenient. I didn't have to worry about returning my DVDs by a certain date, and I was tired of paying late fees and so forth. So it can take a fairly long time to achieve product market fit, as it took with Netflix. Let's move on to the next slide. So how do you know that you have achieved product market fit? Basically, I'll discuss some specific metrics that you can track to understand whether you're achieving product market fit or not. But you will know, if you're not achieving product market fit, then your sales cycle are going to be long, word of mouth is not really spreading. You're not getting, good organic viral growth. But when you do achieve product market fit, then as this quote talks about, customers will be buying your product as fast as you can make it. Your sales cycles will be short. You'll be desperately looking to hire sales and customer support staff, and your PR agency will be successful in getting reporters to write about you and so forth. So you will intrinsically feel that you have achieved product market fit. But let's talk about specific metrics that you can track to understand whether you are achieving product market fit or not. So next slide, please. So these are some of the metrics that you can track. If you're a consumer product, what you want to see is that you're getting usage almost every other day. Your MAU over DAU, which stands for monthly active, daily active or users over monthly active users, is in the 40 to 50% range. Your organic growth is strong, with hundreds of signups a day. That you have strong retention, and I'll talk more about that in terms of retention cohorts later on in the presentation. But that at least 30 to 40% of users are coming back the day after they sign up, and that you can see a clear path to 100,000 users. Let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about it from the perspective of enterprise or SaaS product. So here some of the metrics are different. Here you are achieving a conversion rate of at least 3 to 5% from free to paid. Your LTV to CAC ratio is 3 to 5 times at least. And LTV stands for lifetime value of the customer. So what is the profitability of the customer over its lifetime? And CAC is your customer acquisition cost. So if you're spending, $10 acquiring a customer, then you want to see your lifetime value to be at least $30 to $50. And then your churn rate is fairly low. You want at least no more than 2%, if not ideally 1% monthly churn. And then you have a clear path to $100,000 in monthly recurring revenues. So the question is, where does the conversion and churn rate come from? Is there a source? This is based on talking to a number of VCs and how they evaluate products. So roughly the rule of thumb is ideally no more than 1 to 1.5%, if not 2%. Also, this came from Andrew Chen, who's a famous blogger, also worked at Andreessen Horowitz. So that's some of the source for this data. All right, let's go to the next slide. So one of the things I want to emphasize is that what is not product market fit is user growth, because that can be purchased. Here's an example of a company called BranchOut, which came out in 2012 timeframe, and their goal was to build a LinkedIn except use the Facebook social graph. And at that time, Facebook was fairly open, and you could spam somebody's friends, and which is what they did. And they grew very rapidly. They raised over $50 million, grew very rapidly, but they didn't really have a strong value proposition. As you can see in this chart, the engagement and the user base dropped dramatically over time, and they had to pivot and ultimately sell their company. So my guidance here is first focus on achieving product market fit. And then once you are convinced that you have product market fit, then you can apply your sales engine, marketing sales engine, and grow your customer base. Next slide, please. All right, so as you are thinking about your product plans, your value proposition, and you're thinking about entering a specific market, you need to look at it from a strategic perspective first before you actually get into tactics of achieving product market fit. And one of the key lessons that I learned at Microsoft was that incumbents are incredibly hard to displace. Here's an example that I discuss. When I joined Microsoft in the days of MS-DOS, the leaders in productivity applications were Lotus 123 for spreadsheet. You had WordPerfect for word processing, and DBase for database. And Microsoft had its own offerings at that time. They had Multiplan as a spreadsheet. They had Word, and a MS-DOS version of it. They didn't have a database product at that time. And even though Microsoft had great products, they couldn't really displace these market leaders. And it was only when Windows came out and there was a platform shift. What happened was that Lotus and WordPerfect and DBase did not want Microsoft to be successful. They took a long time to come out with Windows products. And even then, they were really, what they really did was to port their DOS products to Windows, which was not a great experience. Whereas Microsoft really built they threw away the MS-DOS code for Excel and word processing, and built great Windows applications from the ground up. And that's really what made those products successful, as customers were really looking for native applications and ultimately bundle them together as Office. And that's really the story behind the success of Microsoft Office. Next slide, please. So the best opportunities for disruptions is when there is a technology innovation or a platform shift. And that's when incumbents are really slow to adopt the new platform, and you have the opportunity to be the first on that platform and displace the incumbents. And you've seen many examples. Of course, Amazon, when internet came out, they displaced Barnes and Noble and Borders and other bookstores. You have the example of OfferUp here locally, which is a very powerful platform for buying and selling used goods. They displace Craigslist. And then you have Snowflake, which is a very successful data warehousing product, which really was built to be optimized for the cloud environment. So all of these examples of companies that really took advantage of a platform shift. Next slide, please. The other opportunity is when there is a global macro trend. And that was the story of LimeMocha. When we came out in 2007, you had the convergence of globalization, broadband internet, and social networking. Because of globalization, a lot of people were very interested in learning English around the world. And we could really move from CD-ROM platform to delivering, language learning over the internet and connect people around the world around the notion of a social network. And that's what really pioneered the growth of LimeMocha. Next slide, please. So we talked about kind of from a strategic perspective, how to think about whether your product or company can achieve product market fit. You ideally want to take advantage of some platform shift or a global macro trend. But once you have decided on your product, then there is a process that you need to follow, all the way from problem hypothesis to solution formulation, doing customer interviews, validating your hypothesis and solution formulation, building an MVP, understanding what kind of engagement and retention you're getting, and then iterating or pivoting from that point on. Next slide, please. So before you actually launch your product in the market, I highly recommend that you do at least 15 to 25 customer interviews. Instead of presenting your solution and asking your customer what they think about it, first ask what are their top 3 to 4 problems, and make sure that the problem that you're addressing is in the top 3 or 4 problems. Because even if you're addressing a problem that they're experiencing, if it is number 10 on their list, you're not going to make much progress. Your sales cycle will be really long. And so make sure that the problem you're addressing is one of the top problems that they face. And if not, then that's the point at which you might actually want to pivot and ask them, okay, tell me more about the problem that you're facing, and see if you can actually build a solution that addresses the top 3 or 4 problems. Also understand what is the satisfaction with current solutions that they're using to solve those problems. Understand what kind of investment they have made, because if they made a very strong investment, then they may be unwilling to switch to a new solution. And so what you want to do is obviously, looking at this chart here, is you want to address a need that is very high, and the satisfaction that they have with current solutions is low. That's really your market opportunity. And then you can also actually test your value proposition on the web. Build a website describing a value proposition, use Google SEM or Facebook ads to drive customers to your website, test the messaging, and then see what messaging is really resonating with your customers, and then capture the emails of people who would be interested in testing your solution. And then finally, once you've done that, you would want to build a prototype and then test the product concepts with your customers. Next slide, please. And then as you build out your MVP, this is a great diagram that I came across recently that describes the process of building an MVP. What you really want to do is identify the 2 or 3 things that would really make a difference for your customer. Build a product that is reliable, that's usable and delightful to your customer. And then as you release your product MVP to your customers, get their feedback, and then slowly over time, build out the functionality, more functionality, but really doing it as you're addressing your customers' needs. So looks like there's some questions here. How long did it take you to realize product market fit? With my first company, as I mentioned, with my initial product, we did not achieve product market fit. We got a lot of users using it, but the retention was low. It took us about 6 months to realize that and pivot to a new product, which was much faster in achieving product market fit. With my second company, Limoca, we achieved product market fit from the get-go. We got to 100,000 users in a matter of 3 months, 1 million users in a matter of 12 months. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So this is an example of a product concept that was tested by Pioneer Square Labs. You may be familiar with Pioneer Square. They're one of the top incubators in Seattle, and they test hundreds of ideas before they actually decide on launching, 1 or 2 into the market. So this is an example of a product concept called Xylo, which is a marketplace for teaching music. And as I described earlier, they actually created a website, then built Instagram ads, as well as Google ads, as you can see on the slide. And they actually spent money against the advertising to drive customers to the website, and tested different types of messaging, and ultimately decided not to proceed with this concept because the CAC, the customer acquisition cost, was actually much higher than their actual estimated revenue. So in this case, their customer acquisition cost was $94,000, but they estimated only $21,000 of revenue. And they decided as a result to not proceed with the product concept. So there is a question here: what are some good web tools that help you test market fit? Well, we talked about first and foremost, testing the product concept on the internet, and then using advertising to test different value propositions. I'll talk a little bit about retention in a minute. And there are a lot of analytic tools that help you track cohort retention, which is the metric that you want to track when you're testing for product market fit. Let's go on to the next slide. All right, so there are a number of metrics that we discussed that before that you can track, but really the most important metric I found that you want to track is retention cohorts. So tracking the same users over their lifetime of using your product. And so a lot of analytic tools let you do that. In this example, I'm showing you a chart of the top 10 apps all the way to top 5,000 apps, and what does their retention cohort look like? If you're a top 10 app, you will see that your retention cohorts will asymptote to about 50% retention. And if you're a top 5,000 app, you'll asymptote to about 10% retention. We have a rule that a number of us have used in the past to track retention cohorts called the 40-20-10 rule, which is that on day 1, you want to see 40% come back, day 7, 20% come back, and day 30, 10% come back. It doesn't mean that only 10% use your product over its lifetime. It means that on day 30, 10% come back on that particular day. And if you achieve that, then you can hope to be really a top 5,000 app, which will get you a lot of users and drive organic growth. So again, retention is the most important tool that you can track, and should be very important for you to set it up with your analytic tools. Okay, here's a question about what is the difference between value proposition and messaging. They're the same thing. So one of the benefits of testing it on the web is that you can try different ads with different messaging and test which value proposition or messaging really is driving the most click-throughs and people who sign up, to get on your beta program. Next slide, please. So we talked about retention and how that can be used to track product market fit. There's another methodology that's become popular, which is to ask people who are using your application, how would you feel if you could no longer use your product? And if 40% said that they would be very disappointed, that's a sign that you have achieved product market fit. If it's between 25 to 40%, then you haven't quite achieved product market fit and you need more work to iterate with your product. If it's below 25%, then you're far from achieving product market fit. And at that time, you want to keep your burn rate low and you want to pivot to something different, really understand what part of the product people are resonating with, and then see if you can pivot around that. Let's go on to the next slide. There's a question here, from David. In your experience, what signals attract the likeliest first interested earliest adopters of a blue ocean platform shift? David, can you explain that more? Can you unmute yourself and explain that? David? Brand new market, what signals attract the likeliest? I'm still not understanding your question. Can you rephrase it?
So I'm saying, when we're marketing to that target, are there clues or cues that they will be looking for in order to attract them? You understand that?
What clues will they be looking for to attract them?
Yes. What clues should we display for them to notice?
Yeah, I mean the main clues that you want to see in terms of achieving product market fit is that the retention is strong, that the virality of the product is strong. Those are the things that you want to see, that people are really excited about your product. They're providing feedback to you. They're asking for more features. Those are some of the clues that help you understand that whether you're kind of achieving product market fit in a kind of new market. All right. So let me end this presentation by talking about this case study, which is a case study with an application called Superhuman. If you've not heard of Superhuman, it is a really hot email application that helps you very, very rapidly, go through your inbox and clean up your inbox and manage your email overload. So they followed the same methodology I described in the previous slide, which is they asked their users, how would you feel if you could no longer use Superhuman? But they also asked 3 other questions, which is, what type of people do you think would most benefit from Superhuman? What is the main benefit you receive from Superhuman, and how can we improve Superhuman for you? Next slide, please. So when they first did that, their initial data showed that only 22% of the users would be very disappointed. So clearly this did not meet the 40% threshold that I described earlier. So they were far from achieving product market fit. Next slide, please. So they followed a specific process to get to product market fit. One of the questions they had asked for in their survey was, why do people love the product? And what they discovered was that the people who said that they were disappointed if they no longer use the product was the fact that it was really fast, and they could use keyboard shortcuts to really very quickly process their email. So let's see how that was utilized moving forward. So let's go on to the next slide. So then they segmented their user base to understand, of the people who are somewhat disappointed, now that they determined that the speed was the main benefit, how many of them of the somewhat disappointed category, the main benefit was speed, because that's whom they wanted to focus on. They wanted to focus on people who, even though they were they said they would be somewhat disappointed, that the main benefit to them was speed. Next slide, please. So for them, they wanted to understand, how can we improve Superhuman for you? And some of the key things that came up in the word cloud was calendaring, mobile app. Those are some of the things that were important to them. And so what they did was they took their roadmap and they divided it into 2 parts. 50% of their effort was dedicated to further improving the speed benefit, because that's what they identified as being really important to them. And 50% of their product roadmap was dedicated to improving Superhuman along the dimensions of calendaring and mobile application and search and so forth. And then they measured, once they implemented those changes, then they measured again they asked the same question about how many would be disappointed if they couldn't use Superhuman again. So let's look at the results. Next slide, please. And you can see as they made those enhancements, both to speed as well as developing a mobile app, that percentage went from 33% over time to 58%. So remarkable improvement in their the percentage of people who said they would be highly disappointed. And so clearly they had achieved at that point product market fit. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So so we talked about that case study. Last thing I want to emphasize is that achieving product market fit is one part of the equation. What's also very important is achieving a product business model fit. Going back to the LimeOka example, we achieved a product market fit spectacularly because we grew very rapidly. Unfortunately, a lot of our users were in international markets. And in that time frame, in the 2007 to 2008 time frame, a lot of people in international markets did not have access to international credit cards. And so we had a real challenge monetizing at that point, and ultimately had to sell the company to Rosetta Stone. However, years later, you may have heard of Duolingo came into the market, and they were successful in monetizing through the App Store, and ultimately went public with their product. So a lot of times, it can be a matter of timing. You have product market fit, but somehow you can't really build the business model.
Thank you for contacting the Federal Service Desk. FSD collects contact information.
Thank you.
Алло.
All right, next slide, please.
Ты нормально?
All right, so that's the end of my presentation. There are a number of questions I see in the chat window. If you have any questions, please add them to the chat window at this point, and I'll take them at this point. But I also wanted to provide my coordinates. You can reach me on LinkedIn or Twitter, also my website. Happy to connect with anyone who wants to connect through LinkedIn or is working on a startup idea and you want to vet that with me. I would be happy to do that as well. Okay, let's go through some of the questions here. Sorry, just give me a second to read through these questions. How many users do you need to measure product market fit? Maybe only 40 out of 100 users you say are great. You really need, it depends on whether you're a consumer product or an enterprise product. If you're a consumer product, you need to have hundreds or thousands of users and track your retention, as well as do the surveys of how many would be disappointed with the product if you took it away from them. Whereas with enterprise products, you need probably 3 to 5 enterprise customers to test product market fit. All right, if you're in a highly competitive market today, may not be market fit tomorrow, what would you recommend that companies do to be in the top of their fit besides tracking retention rate? Well, each company will have a different set of features, so it's hard to say what specific features you would have to implement for any particular product. But really what you need to be tracking is, how do you maximize your retention rate, your engagement rate, drive daily active users over time. And that's really the way to go about achieving product market fit. Question: I once worked for a product exec who had a sales background. He believed that customer acquisition was more important than retention. What are your thoughts? I mean, as I discussed in my presentation, Customer acquisition, if you have boatloads of money, maybe you're a serial entrepreneur and you have successfully raised $5 million of funding, you may be tempted to just go spend a bunch of money acquiring customers. But if you don't have retention, all that money will go to waste. And retention is really also what allows you to drive organic growth, because the more users you have, the more users who are coming back and using your application, the more happy they will be, and the more likely they are to tell other people. And so organic growth is also a function of retention. And so you'll end up spending a lot less money acquiring users. Will you be sharing the slide deck? As I understand it, if you fill out a survey that Katie will be sending out, then you will get access to my slides. So happy to share the slides. Okay, onboarding is a hot topic after finding product market fit. Any tips or case studies for creating onboarding experience that get the customers to the aha moment as fast as possible? So one of the products I would recommend you look at in terms of onboarding experience is OfferUp. They spent a lot of time on their onboarding experience, making it really easy for somebody to onboard onto OfferUp, take a picture of the item that they want to sell, and then display that in their marketplace, and then get customers to buy their product. So I would recommend taking a look at that product. What's important, transparent pricing or custom pricing when you start a new market? I think you'll see that most companies have very transparent pricing. Typically, you'll have kind of a good, better, best, or prosumer, small business, enterprise, and the first two segments, they'll be transparent about their pricing, and then custom pricing for enterprise customers, because they want to capture the lead before and then convert that customer. So I definitely recommend transparent pricing, and then custom, for most of your segments, and then custom pricing for your enterprise segment. Any good templates or case studies for pricing your SaaS products? I haven't come across a specific template for pricing or case studies. Something I will definitely investigate and maybe write with my newsletter. By the way, I have a newsletter if you're interested on Substack. It's called From Startup to Exit. So something I'll definitely investigate and write about in my upcoming newsletter.
Thank you, Shirish.
All right, a lot of great questions. Feel free to unmute yourself as well if you'd like to ask any final questions before we end the session.
Hi, Shirish. One quick question. Thanks for the session. Sorry, joined in late. We came to the Gates facility, but somehow got the link late. So completely our loss. Thanks for the session. One quick question, is the product market fit, is it a milestone or it's an ongoing journey? So what are your thoughts? How did you figure that out?
To some extent, it is, it's a journey. It'll take you, but it's also a point of time that you can achieve. So I discussed specific metrics around retention cohorts. So you want to get to the 40-20-10 rule. It's going to be a journey to get there, as you make improvements to your product. But once you get there, you have achieved product market fit when your churn rate is less than 2%, 1%, etc. Those are some of the milestones that you want to achieve, and that you have really achieved product market fit. And that's the point at which you'd want to then turn on the marketing spigot and really start spending money behind selling or marketing your product.
Okay, thank you.
So Shirish, I came across like this analogy of product market fit as something like painkiller versus vitamin.
Mhm.
If it is like a painkiller, it is something like your patient will never miss it. He has to take it every morning.
Yeah.
If it is vitamin, he can skip a couple of days and still be fine. So to figure it out, like if you think your product is a painkiller, then yes, it has a perfect product market fit.
Yeah, that's definitely a analogy that a lot of people use. But be careful. Not every pain point is something that a customer wants to solve immediately. So you want to be one of the top 3 or 4 pain points, or that you have an aspirin for. Otherwise, your sales cycles are going to be really long. So that's what you want to determine: is this really a pressing need? Have they built their own custom solution? If that's a really good sign. If they built their own custom solution to solve that problem, then that's a really great sign that it's a significant pain point, that they actually took the effort to actually build a solution themselves, as opposed to looking in the market for a solution.
Hi, Shirish. Just a quick question. I was wondering, what is the difference between a go-to-market and a regular marketing plan?
Same thing. Go-to-market is really the same terminology for developing your overall marketing and sales plan. How are you going to, where do your customers aggregate or reside? How are you going to reach them? Is it what are your organic as well as paid methods for reaching your customer? How are you going to deploy your sales force if you have one? What is the messaging? All of those components are part of your go-to-market or your marketing plan. Any final questions?
Shirish?
Yeah.
Hi. You mentioned an app called Athora, or maybe that's not the right name, and I didn't quite catch that.
I'm not sure what you. How do you spell that?
It's the same question as Deborah's.
Yeah, the apps that I referred to in my presentation, I referred to OfferUp, which is a marketplace for used goods. I talked about Superhuman. Those are the only apps that I mentioned.
So one quick question, Shirish.
Yeah.
This is Ketan from Velocity. Regarding the product market fit, should we go after, in the B2B space, should we go after one specific sectoral kind of client, or should we spread ourselves thin across whoever comes and then figure out later on? What's the right way to do?
That's a great question. I'm of the philosophy that, focus as much as you can. If you can narrow the segment or the sector that you're going after, whether you're consumer product or enterprise product, the better off you will be, because your messaging can be very precise for that segment. Your product plan can be very specific. So there are, so once you achieve a product market fit and you can show investors that you have achieved that, you can show them the metrics, it's a lot easier for you to raise money at that point. I'll give an example of OfferUp again. When they launched with their product, they launched only in the Seattle market. And they were able to do that with Facebook advertising because they could target by zip code. But they essentially focused on women in the Seattle market, and they were able to show that they were getting really good traction in that marketplace, and they were able to then raise money to then expand beyond Seattle into 3 additional markets. And then once they proved that they could get to additional markets and show product market fit, then they were able to raise $15 million to go nationwide. So don't be afraid to focus because you're concerned that you might have only a small number of users. Because if you have the right metrics, then you can convince investors to invest in your company.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I hope you found the session useful with your own entrepreneurial journey. As I mentioned, I'm available as an advisor at no cost. I always love to meet with entrepreneurs, and if you are having challenges getting to product market fit, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to meet over coffee or over Zoom. So good luck with your journey, and hope to connect soon.
Thank you very much,
Okay.
Rich, for spending time with us, sharing his wisdom and all his years of knowledge with us today. So thank you very much, and also appreciate everyone participating and sharing together in the session. All right, so thanks again to everybody. I wish everyone a great rest of the week. Thank you.